What's up, y'all? It is your girl Camila Cantu here live for another Vibras Detroit podcast episode. We are here today with Oceania, the poet, the legend, the business owner. I have my co-host. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Woo! One and the only baby in the building. Shout out to Oceania. I'm right here with your boy Bunny. What's going on, mi gente? You know what time it is. We're going to kick off this show with an amazing person today on the set with us.
Yeah, so Oceania, I definitely just want to hop into this. I want to start off by saying, I'm a huge fan of you, bro. I met y'all, just for everybody tuning into the podcast. I met Oceania at the Ford Resource and Engagement Center event. I think you were promoting your book, Waiting on God. And the mariachi group was performing. Dude, I feel like I've met everybody in the community just somewhere through a performance.
Yeah. If you're in the arts and culture scene, then you pretty much meet everyone that way. Yeah.
Dude, for real,
Correct,
honestly.
correct.
But that was lit, and you. The woman mariachi, I was like, oh my God, is this real life? Where are we at? What are we in?
So unique, I swear.
Thanks, y'all. I really appreciate that.
You don't see that all the time, you know what I'm saying?
Never.
You don't just walk into a restaurant and it's always male artists or a male mariachi band,
Yeah.
or, they got a lead singers. But, for a woman to really just do it on her own like you and just have her
I appreciate you. Wow, we started off that I'm so happy about my band. I appreciate that.
The only one? In the state or the what?
Yeah, so basically with mariachi, there's 4 or 5 groups in the state, but they all started they've been playing with each other since the 80s, 90s. If you look at groups or if you look at pictures from mariachi group back in the 90s, it's literally the same men that are still playing today. Literally.
Are you serious?
Yeah, a lot of them are the exact same people. No joke. So
that's crazy.
there's 3 stable bands, and then I was in a youth group, and then I started my group. So yes, we are the first.
We're very similar, me and you.
Really?
Yeah, because
we're about to dive in. We're about to find out.
Very independent.
So Oceania, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the people? I give you a very brief introduction, but I feel like you are such a multifaceted woman. I just want you to be able to touch on everything that you get into.
Yeah. So my name is Oceania, and I used to be known as Candida the Poet. So my last book, Waiting on God, that was the author name on there, but I have decided to retire that identity. And we can get into that another time. If you guys ever want to learn about it, just hit me up. But basically, I have this name Oceania, which also has its own meanings, and it came to me a certain way. We can get into that also. But
I kind of want to hear that story. I really do.
I am originally from Southwest Detroit, but I moved a lot. So, I lived in Houston for 5 years. I lived in Arizona. I lived in Kansas. I lived in Missouri. I lived in, where else? Florida. So, it's just a lot of cultural influences in me.
Yeah, why were you traveling so much when you were here?
Because my family was somewhat dysfunctional. My mom so for Houston, I'm just gonna be real with you guys. When I went to Houston, it was because my mom had a case, and her probation was in Houston. Mm-hmm. So because what they were doing was over the border or whatever, and so we had to go there for 5 years to serve her probation. So I literally she got out of jail, prison, and then it was my mom's back, and we're going to Houston. So I just left Detroit and went to Houston.
Correct. I see that by the time you hit 16, you had already lived in 6 states already.
Yeah.
Being that young and
that's a lot. I'm just thinking about all the school systems you went through too.
I went to a different school every year of my life. I was at one high school for 2 years. That was it. That was the last 2 years of high school. I was in one school, and it was a culture shock more than any of the other culture shocks that I had. Because every time we moved, we went to another community of color. So it was just we went to all the hoods of all the places. Yes. Even in Missouri, we were, it was really diverse there. More white people, but they were still country, down to earth, cool people. Yeah. But when I lived in New Boston, New Boston though in Michigan, is a city in Michigan. That's where I spent my last 2 years of high school, and that was a culture shock. That was basically prepping me for University of Michigan culture.
Oh God!
Yeah, very
whole podcast episode on
culture. So yeah, that's that. But I graduated from Michigan, ended up going to the University of Michigan. That was always my dream school, and then I came back in the city. All throughout college, I spent time in Southwest, kind of reintegrating myself into the community after being gone for so long, getting to know my own roots better, that kind of stuff. And that was a whole process. That was a whole journey. That's how I met a lot of the people in this community who are involved in the arts and culture scene. And so I could give out many shout outs right now, like Matt from Motor City Street Dance Academy, like Amelia from Garaje. I connected with Reyes actually when he was still in Chicago. When he was still in Chicago doing his thing, he had asked me to come out there and perform, and I had connected with him, and then he came to Southwest, and it was like, okay, lit. And now he's got so many, he's got his hands in so many awesome things here. And just so many people, like my sorority, Delta Tau Lambda, a lot of them are from Southwest Detroit. So just a lot of like getting to know my own, I feel like my people again, because this is where I always considered home. And then I just was uprooted so aggressively, and coming back, coming back was like scary because I was like, I don't know if people are gonna like accept me again, and people did, like, with so much love, and that's so appreciated. I love this community, like it always held me down above all. But yeah, so now I'm here, and I'm in Southwest. I've been in Southwest since I graduated college. I've been living here. Even before I graduated, I moved back, and I've been living here ever since, and I don't see myself
That's
going.
Beautiful. I was studying you, and you've been writing since the age of 7, I believe.
Yep.
Also, another thing was that you used to write to your dad while he was in jail.
Yes.
Growing up.
Yeah, both my parents were locked up, guys.
yes, and I heard he told you to write a poem about the sun, and that's honestly how I feel like you found yourself that way. How did you manage to was it writing your dad that kind of just helped you build up that momentum?
I'm very curious to open the conversation because I feel like with everything that you're telling me now, with like how much you moved around, like I'm very interested to see like how do you think all this moving around and transition has affected like your writing as like a poet. And so I personally did read Waiting on God, like that really it got me through my junior year, I think, of college, and it was a beautiful book, dude. It was a beautiful poetry.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of poetry, and it's like so good. So I kind of want to hear a little bit, if you don't mind diving into the process a little bit of how all this transition from your youth has like affected you as a poet and as an artist.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, girl, the weighted questions.
Man, they're not weighted. Okay, so
these are no. I mean by that, like, these are the deep, good questions that that should be asked.
Questions, I feel.
Yeah, but that, like, I'm glad no one's ever asked me that before, and I feel like it's such a major influence on like who I am and why I create the way I create and what I create. So like, that's definitely something I would like to talk about.
For certain.
And I think being immersed in so many different places around the nation, and granted, like, the U.S. is huge. It's not like I've been everywhere, but like being able to go from place to place and having to always be the new kid and just like throw myself into a community, into a culture that is now like where I'm at, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just a kid,
it really forces you to have a voice.
Yeah, and like, it was the hood, like I said. So like, I'm in Houston, in the hood. Everybody finds out I'm from Detroit, and off rip, it was just like, oh, you from Detroit? Like, they want to try me. Yeah, everybody tried me.
A lot of stigma associated with
a lot of people tried
the city of Detroit. And I don't know Detroit is for real.
I'm small. Like, I was a tiny little kid, like a little kid. And girls would just try me left and right at first. And then after, like going through the rough parts, I started to make friendships. I started to have like, I proved myself in a sense. And it was like, okay, she's cool,
They're socially accepted.
Yeah. And so it was like a whole process. Like moving from hood to hood is almost like you try to go from gang to gang. Like you get jumped every time when you first go. And then it just gets like really great after that. It's like, okay, if you make it through that part, then it's like the best experience ever in life. Like Houston is like a second home to me. I feel like the love is so real and everybody there is so genuine. It's very much like Detroit, but Southern. And I just loved it so much. Plus I lived there. I'll tell you how this influenced me. I lived there from the time when like Southern rap was like pop, like the South was crazy. It was like during Mike Jones, when Mike Jones first came out, like legit Mike Jones was selling his CDs in my neighborhood, like no lie, like on the streets, like just selling them. My stepdad actually bought one of his like one of his CDs that he was selling at the plaza, and like has it still to this day. And like then he blew up, and it was just like what? And like the number that he had in his raps was really the number. Like we were all calling his phone, like we hope we get to talk tonight.
So the rumors are true.
Yeah. Like it was crazy. I mean, he was way older than me. I was just a kid, but like it was just crazy to be there during that height of hip hop, when the South was just like going crazy with all the amazing artists.
Yeah,
so like that influenced me in a major way. Like that whole just Southern hospitality, Southern culture and music and energy. It was just a lot.
Dude, hell yeah.
And the education system there was like 20 times better. Like
it
just was. Like they got.
How about the lunch? You got a good lunch. Is it better here? You know?
I don't even remember. I think I ate hot Cheetos every day.
Hot Cheetos every day? Okay. Hot Cheetos. That's a typical Detroiters breakfast.
Like hot Cheetos and Arizona tea. Like that was me.
Arizona tea.
Correct.
Before first period. I'll pull up to first period with that McDonald's orange juice, bro.
Yeah.
I feel like you can plug up
McDonald's orange juice.
if you just carry it around.
It is on point, especially if it's really, really cold.
Speaking on locations and neighborhoods, man, come on. What's going on, Oceania? They tried to rename our neighborhood. You know, what's up with that? What's up with all of that? That's not cool. That's something I don't like, and I strongly agree with you. I know you were recognized for your painfully painted, for its relevance and perspective, and is currently integrated in the political science curriculum at Wayne State University.
That's dope.
Your poem, it hit borders in my body, it hit my soul, and I literally had to rewind like 30 times when I first heard it. I was in the kitchen trying to eat some tacos. I didn't even end up eating the tacos because I was just so impacted by this. You know, like they can't do this to us. Our roots are so integrated underground.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And honestly,
gentrification.
That's a big topic. You know.
Yeah, it is. That poem was like what set me off. I feel like in the city, it was like, oh, that's the girl that did that poem on gentrification. Like that's kind of like. I feel like what I became known for.
And how did you feel when they got integrated at Wayne State? Like, did you expect it to blow up like that?
I don't know. How did that even happen?
Honestly, I owe that to Antonio Cosme because he like was pulling us as the Rise Up. We started this collective called the Rise Up, and he was pulling us into the universities, like him and Knox, and like. We were starting to do these workshops at universities talking about what we do and sharing that with students and with like professors from different, institutions. And so we had this thing at Wayne State. It was like they were doing a series of workshops or whatever. It was some kind of event. It was so long ago. I can't remember the details. But we talked about the Rise Up. My poem, I ended up making a visual for it because I just had all this footage in my phone. Like, when you're just in the neighborhood. And you're just with people, and
you go to everything.
Living, like I just had all these videos in my phone because I had always been documenting everything. And I was like, I need to do something with these clips. And so I just put them all together over the voiceover of my poem. Nice. And so they viewed that. Like, it was on YouTube, and it just kind of went a little bit crazy. Like, not crazy, but it started to get, like, some thousands of views. And I actually deleted the original, and the new one's up is not the original. That's why it's not as crazy. But in the beginning, it would just, like, went kind of viral around the neighborhood,
Nice.
And so they found it, they showed it at the workshop, and then the professor came up to me and they're like, oh, you're the one who did this or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, wow, well, can we get a copy of your poem? Like, we want to include, like, your poem and, like, what you do, like, some of the things that you have to say about this in our curriculum so that every year we can, like, bring this up and use it as a tool.
That's so dope.
And I was like, yeah, sure, of course, duh.
Dude, I feel like Wayne State's actually a really great university that does this. I feel like I think, in my opinion, they're a little more intentional than like the University of Michigan about being in direct communication with people in the community, if that makes sense. So
yeah, like, it would definitely be easier for them because they're right in the heart of the city.
Exactly.
So like, that's the plus about being at Wayne State. It's like you're kind of in the community, and if you are not from Detroit, you're forced to be like immersed in the city in a way, so that's really cool. And I know Wayne State does some really cool stuff too, where they let universities like Michigan bring Michigan students to Wayne State to live there. I'm not gonna lie, I did the program, even though I should.
She's like, I'm already plugging the program.
I only did it because low-key I just wanted a free place to live while I was in the city, but I didn't need an integration into the city.
I love finessing the colleges,
but
bro.
you know what? I don't feel bad about that.
No,
I really,
you shouldn't.
You gotta teach me how to do that.
We were paying we paid tuition, bro.
Yes.
Like, why wouldn't we be able to choose our
experiences? If you want to know how to finesse throughout higher ed and make sure you get what you need, and you make it through, like, hit me up because we do this. Like, literally, you can follow Bloom Bodies on Instagram, like just how it's spelled, Bloom Bodies. Like, that's a Detroit group that we started where we literally help young people know how to navigate these systems and finesse. So, like, let us know.
So I feel like finesse was honestly, when I went to college, I was like one of the first things I had to learn, because you're not only, when applying to college, it's just all thing in general, like I like to call it like universities are asking for kind of like these like trauma essays of like, or especially from like communities of color, like
I definitely feel like that's the main reason I got into college, because my white political science teacher literally told me that I needed to write a sob story. He was like, you need to share your life. He was like, I know you're very prideful and you don't want to do that. Because I was like, no, like, I'm not doing that. And he's like, dude, like, who cares what you had to do to get your foot in the door? Like, just do it and go in there and do whatever you want to do. Like, and he really put me hip. Like, that's a white mentor telling me, a white man who has a lot of privilege and knows, like, he's telling me, like, we do this, we do this, like, just do it.
It's like it's one of the first lessons of like school for real is like finesse. So the application, the scholarships, the A's.
You're not selling your soul. Like, me sharing my story is not selling my soul. You know what I'm saying? They're not profiting off of my story. They're just feeling a type of way about it, letting me get into the university. Like, and that's not the only reason, of course. Like, I had a good ass GPA, like 4.2, and my ACT score was a 28. If I'm being real, but that's not good for Michigan. 28 is not that good to get in Michigan, and so that's where I would have had an issue. So I had to write a strong, powerful essay. I did tell my whole vulnerable ass story about like my parents and what I was going through, and like maybe that weighed in on how I got into the university. And do you
feel like it was also a similar story? Because I know that like that's like definitely a common thing for seniors going into their undergrads. But would you say, because I know that you also have your master's, would you say it's kind of like a similar theme?
3.9 GPA.
3.9 GPA. That's impressive, bro. Oh my god.
Congrats to you. I know you worked so hard.
3.9. That's crazy for.
See, that's why nobody can say nothing to you. You can finesse all you want to. At the end of the day, did I get my degree? Did I do the work? Did I graduate?
Yes,
did I get a good GPA? Okay, shut the fuck up.
Tell me, if you don't got nothing to say,
don't let somebody put you down. Like, because people at the university told me they would bring it up in my face all the time. Like, oh, you just got in because you're Latina. Oh, you just got in because you came from Detroit, because you're poor. Like, because whatever. And it's like, and
tell them what you
say. And so what if it is? Because I'm in the same class as you and I'm doing better than you.
I'm passing more than you. Professors like me better too. Like, so what do you have to say? No, oh God, universities in general. Like, I am personally very much glad to, so I I met you actually before we even met at the Frick. I lied. At the University of Michigan through like Rich and like a bunch of like social academia friends
it's all
there.
A blur to me.
I feel like I'm way happier in the community, bro. Like, it's for sure. Living back in Southwest, transitioning even from like living in Ann Arbor, like it was primarily like white city. The culture shock for me was crazy too as well, because it's just like I go to high school, or I go to these like schools my whole life with primarily Black and Latinx students, and then I suddenly go to college and it's like PWI, a primarily white institution. Like, that in general was its own thing. I'm very glad that like we can all like still circle back and come back to the community, which I feel like was a big thing that we were kind of touching on earlier, of like why you decided to come back to Southwest even after pursuing all this education. Like we went and we got our degrees, but like we're back, and I feel like that just speaks to like the city and the culture.
Definitely. You joined Guild's Poets in 2017 of October, I believe.
Yes.
How was that experience? How did you, get in touch with them? Did they get in touch with you through your poem? How was that?
The Guild Poetry Collective is just a whole blessing. Like, these are people that I met in college. William Royster and Michaela Norwood are the founders and directors of the collective.
Correct.
And I knew them in college. We all knew each other sort of just as the poets on campus in a gist. And some of us were in Greek life. So, like, we just had these ties throughout college. But these are people who are just so authentic and genuine and just God-gifted talents.
I love their storytelling. It's so amazing.
And so
it's like really a story. Like, I feel like you all tell the story. Like, it's a whole like visual experience.
Thank you. We try like really hard. Our goal is to be an authentic version of poetry that is for a purpose. Not just unintentional poetry that happens for clout or happens for views, for money. Like, the poetry scene has been saturated with like a certain sound, a certain expectation. It's just like every other genre of hip hop music, whatever. Like, so the Guild came just to try to bring that authenticity back, you know, that Deaf Poetry Jam vibe, but like our way, the new, you know what I'm saying, modern, like this is what we're about, you know, talking about issues that we care about today, and being intentional about that. So they just invited me to be a part of it. They hit me up and they said, we want you to be a part of this. We met in a living room and we just got to work.
Wow.
that was that.
I think a good example was the MLK Symposium Party.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I seen the event, I seen all the videos. You guys really just went out there.
Oh,
that was powerful. That was a powerful show.
Is that the same day you opened up for Angela Davis?
Yes. We opened up for Angela Davis in Hill Auditorium. There were so many people there. I mean, it was packed.
It was so
there was people on the floor, people waiting outside in the lobby. Like, it was crazy because Angela Davis was there. But we went on right before her. So it was just like, we are the Guilds, and we sent a powerful message. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely go check it out.
It's on YouTube, y'all.
Because, like, it was fire. We called out the institution right in their home, and they let us do it because we had some gatekeepers that were real about what was going on. So, like, that was a beautiful experience.
How long did it take you to write your book? Were you working on it? I know you released it in this year, 2021.
Yeah.
Were you working on it for a while before you released it, or?
I think my book is like a collection of. So basically, you know how as artists, like, we just create a lot of things.
Oh yes.
So that was like me looking at all of my poetry and deciding what I wanted to share with the world. So it was just like me going. I mean, I literally had like hundreds and hundreds of shit, like papers all over the floor, like all my documents pulled up if I wrote it on my computer, and I'm just looking at everything and I'm sorting everything into categories and I'm trying to figure out, like, is there a book in here, you know?
And there was.
It was a beautiful journey through my own poetry.
Wow.
Dude, I feel like that's one of my favorite things also as a creative, just because I songwrite, so I write a lot of lyrics, and like songwriting, lyric writing is basically poetry, you know. It's just it's pretty much the same thing, and I feel like I recently did that, and I went through all of my like notes and all my poetry and all my lyrics.
I got an album.
Dude, literally, like you look back at all the content you create, and you're like, man, like I actually have something here.
Yes.
You don't like. I feel like you just don't realize in the process of creating and just putting it away, creating and putting it away, that you're like, this is actually a project.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were kind of putting together all these poems, what was I'm really curious on the name, because that was one of like my original questions when I saw it, because like waiting on God is like. It says so much in 3 words, you know. It talks about it talks about like your religious beliefs. It talks about like where you are in life. It's like you give the people a lot.
The book, correct?
Yes, so it's like you gave the people a lot. Just know. So like, what was like the process for even coming up with the name while going through all of this content?
It's funny because like when I finally decided on that title, I felt like God told me to name it that, and when I decided on that title, I got so much backlash from people like, if you do that, like, you know, it's going to make a lot of people not want to read it because, you know, when you talk about religion or God, it turns people off a lot, you know, like people aren't feeling that right now. And so it was really hard because I was like, damn, like people are not going to read my book just because they're going to assume that I'm like some super religious person, or that this book is about God and they're not going to want to read it because it's just about God. So it was a whole risk I had to take. But I called it that because I felt like I was waiting on God.
Yes.
Like that picture on the front is me, a little girl sitting in a tree. Like I was a little girl, I used to sit in that tree all the time, whenever I was at my grandparents' house. And I would just be up there thinking and like talking to the tree and like listening to God, you know. And I felt like all I ever did was wait on God to change my life, because at that time I was with my grandparents because my parents were locked up.
Yeah.
So I'm here in a position.
Man, you've gone through shit if you have something with your grandparents at one point in your life, bro. Like, all you have to say is, like, I live with my grandparents.
Yep. I was living with them, and, like, I just spent a lot of time in that tree, and I felt like my perspective on life was, like, I'm just waiting for God to fix it. Like, I'm praying every day for God to just, like, fix my life. And then as I got older and wiser and, like, going through things, and when I was contemplating on the book and I'm reading all this poetry, like, I was looking at all of my work, and I'm like,
you had still been waiting.
I'm like, why am I waiting? Like, what am I waiting for? What am I waiting on God to do? Like, look at all this brilliance. I have all the answers within myself. God has already given me all the answers. Like, I just need to be more intentional about, like, myself, you know?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to call it Waiting on God because I'm like, my whole life, you can spend your whole life waiting on God. You know what I'm saying? But God is already here, and He already gave you everything. And everything that you want in this life is already yours.
Yes.
Like, the only person who can stop you from having the life that you want is you. And sometimes you have to accept that what God has for you isn't always what you want. But if you don't accept it and let it go, if you sit there still waiting on God, ain't shit gonna change for you, because God is like, I already told you you're not getting that. Just like a parent, like, get over it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So with that, I really want to transition into talking about, because we talked a lot about your book, we talked a lot about your background and education and your community work, but I want to dive into what are you doing now? So like, you're doing a lot of work with Free Body, co-founder of Free Body Entertainment,
director.
Come on. So I really want to. So how would you like transition now? That experience of kind of when you were waiting on something that you realized you just had to do for yourself and give to yourself. So like now, would you say kind of like you're holding more of your own power? What does that look like for you? Like how do you move now, you know, in comparison to when you were going through those reflections?
One thing I know for sure is that what God has for you doesn't always look like what everybody is okay with. That's what I know for sure from this experience ever since I decided to go for what my spirit was calling me to do and not wait on things. It's just, it manifested into something I never would have thought that I would be doing. Like, yes, I was involved in the adult entertainment industry when I was younger. Like, I started being involved when I was 18 and just hopping in the club just to get some extra money because I was going to the university and I had no idea what to expect and I was poor. So I'm like, I need to make some extra money and this is how I know how to do it.
We honestly don't talk enough about people that have to work and go to college.
Yeah, it's hard. It's so really hard, especially when you have, like, when I say I had no, like, I literally packed my stuff up in my hoopty Ford Taurus 97, 93, whatever it was, drove myself to college, never been there before, and unpacked my shit myself, moved everything into my dorm. I'm looking around, all I see is parents and their kids, and this is a whole thing. And I'm like, wow, my experience was so different.
So different.
And so, like, that shit just hit me. Like, I am by myself. Like, I'm alone. And I always kind of knew that because at 16, I was out on my own. Like, my aunt let me stay with her, but that was like, you know, I was pretty much my own person because both my parents were, again, out of my life. So, like, for me, like, it was just a whole...
Correct. I seen also that 18 months ago, you took a big step in your life. I'd say 20 months from now because I was scrolling through your Instagram.
Yeah.
And I saw you took a big leap of faith, you know, and you left your old toxic relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And you left with your kids and you just started doing it on your own. And then I believe you found a place and, you know, they actually paid up front for you so you could have time to work and pay them back. Wow. How did you, you know, how did they manage to, but they believed in you like you believed in yourself. That's wow. And that's so inspirational, honestly. Like that's real hard work and independent.
That's only God, you know, and hard work. And I think that's where Free Body was born, out of that, because it was like, you know, and no shame to my ex. Like, we're friends. Of course not. You know, he's a great father, and it was just toxic between us. And sometimes certain people, when so much damage is done, it can only be toxic, really, after that.
Yes, it's
unless you're just friends and you set boundaries, you know what I'm saying? But, like, you can't always be romantically involved with someone that you already had some serious bad experiences, because the trauma is still going to live in you, you know?
And why would you want to continue?
Even if you heal and you manage it, like, that person can still be triggering for you in those contexts. So, like, that's kind of what it is for us. And so we're great co-parents and everything, but we just know that we can't be romantic. And so, yeah, I left. And I came back to Southwest. That job fell through. I had no idea what I was going to do because the childcare, because of COVID, was shut down. So I had 2 sons, and I'm like, I can't go to work anymore. And I had to tell them, like, I don't have childcare, and you know, so I had to leave the job. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I went back to my master's program, another finesse, like, stay in school, you get paid for that. Like, so they gave me refund checks to, well, it wasn't a refund check. I'll be honest. I was a GSI. I got hired as a GSI, but I was not even qualified to be a GSI. But they let me do it anyway because my advisor is dope. And we finessed it. And so I did great as the GSI, mind you. But yeah, so like I had checks coming in from the university to pay my living expenses, which was a blessing. So I'm in school full time and doing my kid, being a mom. And I'm like, okay, this ends in a few months. Like, I'm only in for 1 semester. This is a semester of pay, you know? So I'm like, what am I going to do? We started a business, and that was Free Body. Nice. And that was me and my business partner. Her name is Kaylin Sandifer. She goes by K-Bay.
Shout out
K-Bay,
K-Bay. I
shout out
love
K-Bay.
K-Bay. Detroit Girl
K-Bay.
Anthem. Y'all haven't streamed it yet. That's a bop.
Yes, on all the platforms.
All the platforms. Literally.
So she's like a hot new Detroit rapper. She's been rapping, but she just finally came out, you know. And we decided to come together and solve this problem that I was facing because I was thinking about like my position, and I'm like, damn, like I'm considering hopping back in the club just to like manage, like stack up some money because I don't know what I'm gonna do next. And then I was like, but I don't want to experience all the shit that I experienced before. Like, I don't want to hop back in the club by myself. I don't want to have that experience. I need to build a community around this so that if I do choose to hop back in the club, like, we can do it together and be safe. You know what I'm saying? And have a network of women who can, like, really come in here. And then it turned into, like, oh, let's just transform the whole industry and, like, make it even bigger than that and be the next Playboy, but not, like, totally different, you know? Like how Rihanna and Savage is to Victoria's Secret, you know? Like, so we're, like, it just got to be to the point where it was, like, everybody's big vision. And it was like, all right, fuck it. Let's break down the work and see how do we get this thing off the ground and start it.
Correct. For somebody that doesn't know about the free body entertainment, how would you describe it to them? You know, how is this? How does it work? You know, is it like is it a service? Is it entertainment? You know, I also know you host parties too. Is that part of it too? Or is that, how would it?
Free Body Entertainment is a company that, you know, uplifts, coaches, and, you know, empowers and manages adult erotic entertainers and just women entertainers in general. So we book parties, like we book events, like basically we have a fleet of women who are amazing and talented in like many ways. Some of them do multiple things like host, dance,
they're
model,
meditation teachers. They do everything.
They do. I mean, honestly,
you all
they do
are
everything.
a great cohort
That's
women. Honestly, you guys do so much.
These women are real hustlers, and so a lot of people think that, you know, when you're an erotic entertainer or a stripper, that you're just like that's what you do. Like, no, these women have whole lives. They have some of them have their degrees, some of them are in school, some of them are building businesses. We have a girl who does Lux. She does like edible fruit. I mean, the girl is so talented. The fruit looks so amazing. She decorates it, sells it. People love that shit. Like, you know, we got businesses in the group, you know? Yeah. So it's really cool. It's like we're building a network of women who have multi-talents, and we're coaching them to grow their businesses, learn how to connect to resources, learn how to finesse, learn how to make their way as women in a very difficult industry. Yep. And so, and we also do in a way they can apply those skills to like their other endeavors, not that so that they're solely relying on erotic entertainment.
Because it's all entrepreneurship.
It's just being an entrepreneur at the end of the day. And erotic entertainment is one thing that women can do, but it's been so stigmatized and it's been so exploited that it makes it really hard for women to do the work without either being harmed or, shamed. You know what I'm saying, shame. Yep. So Free Body is that business that says, hey, we're here to back you up. We're here to advocate for you on your behalf in these clubs, in these situations. We're here to book you and help you grow your money by like managing your bookings. So we like we provide private security to them at every single booking that they go. So if a dude comes to them
that's huge. Actually, private security is
private security. We do not tolerate anybody. Like, I'm not afraid to turn down all of the things. So like, this is one thing we always coach our girls about. Like, as women, we have to be able to say no,
be selective,
and not be sad that we missed an opportunity. It's not a missed opportunity. It's you continuing to get less than what you deserve. Mm-hmm. So there comes a time when you have to stop accepting that and you have to say no. Like, no, I can't do the booking because you won't pay for the security. No, I'm not going to come because you're not paying the deposit. Like, and they'll give you the runaround in this industry. Like, oh, they'll apply the pressure. Like, oh, really? Well, we can get a girl to do all these things for this amount. Okay, go get her then.
Right.
Like, go get her then.
Like, this is a company. This is a service. Like, we
have a standard here.
Right.
And the more that we push it, the more clientele we attract that respect our standards. So then as we grow, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna naturally influence the industry and how people do things because it's setting a new standard. So like more girls are joining every month.
I'm very excited to see how you all develop, honestly, because I started following you all like last year. By the way, where can people follow? At Free Body.
Be Free Body.
At Be Free Body.
Just
Free
Be
Body.
Free.
Free
Yep.
at Free Body, y'all.
At Be Free Body. It's spelled just like that.
At Be Free Body.
Be Free Body. Like basically be a free body, but without the A.
Speaking on these opportunities, I know you gotta miss out on some, but opportunity I definitely do not want to miss out on is my birthday is in 2 months from now. So I can look forward to calling you.
Yes,
and calling the service.
Yeah, you guys. I love
We're
the
gonna record too.
edible
We're gonna have everybody.
We will turn it
Everybody's
up.
invited. 2 months from now, Libra season, baby.
We will turn it up.
All right,
Everybody will turn all the parties up. We can host your party. Hit us up.
On that note, y'all, we are going to
to
start wrapping up this podcast as episode Oceania. It was so nice to have you on this episode. Thank you for talking, sharing your wisdom. Honestly, like we talked about college, free body entertainment. We talked about everything.
Thank you so much for real. Like
Yes.
you honestly inspired the shit out of me. Honestly,
No, for real.
I love you guys.
real.
You guys inspire me.
It's amazing.
Like, you don't
We
even.
all
Both
inspire
of
each
y'all.
other. Like
Y'all are so just. I just love it. You're
Yeah,
young
we're
and you're
just,
so intelligent. I
We're
love it.
trying.
Appreciate it.
We
All right,
appreciate that.
Y'all tune into the next episode. We will catch y'all later.
Vibras Detroit
Vibras
podcast,
Detroit
baby. You know what time it
podcast.
is. Holla at your boy. Hey.